I have 3 decades across the energy value chain. We talk about bias. Again, who would think a blonde female is going to be leading a, largest integrated petrochemical complex?
How did you see the industry has changed over period?
Some things have not changed well. So many have. If I think just in terms of ways that we innovate or adopt.
You see the difference as a female leader in that boardroom. You see as a strength or weakness.
I feel that, again, it's not your gender. It's more so what's your perspective that you're bringing. And if you're surrounded with individuals that might come from the same background.
What's your hidden talent?
I think everybody knows, talent. I mean, I love to go.
This is the Oil and Gas Breaking Bias show, where we are going to invite industry leaders to talk about their journeys and also technologies of tomorrow, in an effort to break some of the biases that might have formed around this energy industry. Hello everyone, I hope you are happy and healthy. I'm Anand and you are listening to the Oil and Gas Breaking Bias show. Today I'm happy and excited because we will be joined by Heather Cykoski, a global leader with 25 plus of experience across Schneider, ABB, now at Knauf, working as Chief Commercial Officer. Having worked closely as a global account manager for many energy companies, Heather known for innovation, inclusion, and transformation of this energy industry. So with that, let's deep dive into her journey and also get her views on the biases that might exist in this energy industry. Heather, thanks for joining me today.
Anand, thank you so much for having me. I can't tell you what a pleasure this is and how proud I am of you, of your podcast.
Thank you so much, Heather. And as we discussed before, we were trying to have this session for a long time. And finally, we are meeting today. So I'm looking forward to know more about your journey. And as I said, you have inspired a lot of people, including me. So thanks for taking your time.
Thank you, Anand. And it's so funny because I think about the journey that you and I had together and our constant reconnections, whether it was Sarah Week or at other industry events. I think our purpose is to stay connected. I remember you moving to Houston, the energy capital of the world, for the first time and having conversations about your children coming here. So what a pleasure it is that we continue to have this relationship.
Definitely. I still remember those discussions. No, that's great. Heather, as I said, you have seen this energy industry so closely. You worked into different roles, worked with different companies, and also you are in Houston, where you have worked with many energy companies on a strategic level, on the leadership level. So there's a lot to talk about. I don't want to waste any other minute. So stage is yours. Please talk about your journey and any of the biases that you might have seen and how you came over those biases and stereotypes.
Super. So it's interesting to think that I have 3 decades across the energy value chain. And often I reflect back to the formative years. You think about even when you're in high school or going into university, the selections you made. And I have realized that a lot of those decisions were very intentional and identified at an early age that my minority, being a female, could be leveraged as a competitive edge. I've shared this with others, but in high school, I was in a distributed club it was called Distributed Club of Education, DECA, and I had selected automotive versus what you traditionally would think a female would be in. And I performed quite well. So I think that's when the light went off. So when I went to university, I also chose the most male-dominated field, which was engineering at that time. Yes. Not only engineering, but industrial engineering. Leaving university, then being here in Houston, Texas, very traditional oil and gas, late 90s, hitting the Gulf Coast, again, being one of the few females that were in the industry. And you talk a little bit about your journey, and did I realize that I was a female in a male industry? No. I felt like I was an individual that had a perspective, that was seeing things a little differently, and it was serving me well. That went on, if I think of the 8 years with Schneider Electric, 18 years with ABB, and then now with Knauf, just over 120 days. It's incredible just to think the opportunities I've had, the experiences I've had. And then in terms of biases, we always want to flip the bias to an opportunity, not as let's say, a deterrent. And I feel privileged to have had the opportunity to be interfaced with, working in the Middle East, working in Africa, or just being interfaced with opportunities that are non-traditional, that I think really were probably not only the young formative years when I was in automotive, but then also through my career, identifying an opportunity to be a female leading teams where it's not typical. That's where I really learned and grew.
So one thing you talk about, like your journey as a female leader, like you talk about your engineering background when you have started your career. How did you see the industry has changed over period?
Some things have not changed while so many have. If I think just in terms of ways that we innovate or adopt processes, some of them are still, let's say, liquid natural gas. I mean, some of them are still relatively the same, why it's still quite a young industry. But at the same time, adoption of AI, bringing in automation, especially being in an industrial tech company, the environment where a process can be pretty similar, there's innovations that are happening quite rapidly. And I think also that has a lot to do with maybe a bit of a bias as well in the industry. If I think of just traditionally coming into oil and gas and how we watched whether it was onshore gas or offshore gas move into liquid natural gas, the adoption of power applications that drove more of the data centers, or it's how do you call it? You're evolving yourself in your career while you're watching the industry evolve, and being a part of it, I think, is really what's special.
And do you see the difference as a female leader in that boardroom? You see as a strength or weakness? Yeah, we are not in rapid fire round yet, but I want to ask that question because you have lots of
Yeah.
experience on that perspective.
Feel really honored and privileged to, number one, have had the opportunity not only to be in the boardroom, but also to be in the sands of Saudi in one of the largest integrated petrochemical complexes of the world, because it's not traditional to have a woman leading those teams. But I feel that, again, it's not your gender. It's more so what's your perspective that you're bringing. And if you're surrounded with individuals that might come from the same background or the same studies or have the same gender, and you have a different perspective, that's where you really can leverage your difference for a benefit.
Yeah, makes sense. And you worked across different companies. What similarity or differences you find among them?
It's a great question. I think you and I, when we were sitting at Sarah Week, we were in the a restaurant. We had some really good discussions there. And I would advocate for others to experience broadening your profile if you can. I think you learn so much from every company, and to experience whether it's the culture or the dominance in a certain industry or position, but then to leave and go in and see it in another is really fascinating, because
Yes.
everything does in the end connect. And when I talk about my career, I talk about the energy value chain, because it's everything from, in our ABB days, source to socket, right? So it's everything from mining all the way to, walking into your home and now providing the insulation in your home.
Yes, you're right.
It is very, very connected. And you'll find that you'll take certain processes or a culture from a culture that maybe had an opportunity to improve, that you could bring into another, and vice versa.
No, makes sense. Makes sense. And there are always opportunity to learn. And also in some of my previous interviews, we talk about the skills are transferable. What's your take on that one?
And many might feel this way. I think I felt this way, is to be in an industry for 30 years, to have really a phenomenal network, to be known, to have a bit of a brand, and then to leave 30 years into your career to go into something absolutely different is a bit
Right.
terrifying.
It is. It
And
is. It is.
but to know that everything that you've built up, whether it's you're responsible for a $2 billion business supporting engineering, procurement, construction, or if you've got a $2 billion business that's looking at automation, electrification, or you've got a $2 billion business that's building materials. A lot of those same skill sets. How do you drive transformation? How do you build diverse teams? How do you set a culture that is infectious and that inspires? How do you really drive bold growth? How do so all of those things are what's transferable. And you learn something from each and every experience, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point, and also this is a good thing for our listeners to know. Like this is you are reiterating so many things that other leaders talked about. Like sometimes we underestimate ourselves. We don't explore opportunities outside our comfort zone. But as you mentioned, it's important to explore those opportunities. So as an individual, we should look for those opportunities, but as a company, they should also provide those opportunities because sometimes, the hiring managers, they have a checklist and they go through that checklist and sometimes that limits a possibility to move among those different roles and different companies.
And I think that's a really good point. And I think many of us have shared conversations of one, you have individuals that have high aspirations. And then you might also have a list of qualifications that as a leader, you can fill, let's say, 5%, but the remaining percentage, it's important that you either have a kitchen cabinet or supporters in your organization that are going to help you grow. I found that as a leader, my bold bets were the ones that really drove the highest results. And it was, putting an individual that maybe wasn't even an engineer, that didn't have the tenure, but did have experience. So for example, this individual, I won't say her name, but many know who she is, from China to support the Middle East, but she studied language. So I knew that the investments that were going into the Middle East, she would be able to build trust and a relationship with her customer base, and then paired her with an individual that had the tenure in the organization. So if she needed it, she had the support of someone within the team, and that drove the circularity of what we needed in a diverse team. We all say that diverse teams create better performance. Diverse teams, I think that there's statistics that it's at multiples, I think 5-time multiples. But I've seen it firsthand because, again, maybe you may have a bias that this person might not have the capabilities, but in fact, if you go ahead and execute and pair them with maybe the skill sets by a partner, it expands because those two individuals are then teaching each other.
Yes, makes sense. And that's why I remember you have named your team Fun Squad. And that fits very well, so learning from each other and that learning never stops.
Yeah, I love that you just said that because Society of Women Engineers conference is going on this week. And I just had a discussion with some of our leads and they are all reminiscing about our days, and to have that come back after all of these years and that we all just say the word and smile because it was an effective feeling. We created a culture together. And I think maybe in the early days, we called ourselves the misfits because we were all so different. But what we were actually doing is creating a secret sauce that's been repeated in many businesses after that showed similar results.
No, that's great. No, that's great. The journey continues. Let's switching a topic here. We talk about this industry. As you already mentioned about, there's so much is happening in this industry, from LNG to data centers and AI and all those things. But you have to summarize or underline some opportunities and challenges about this industry. And if somebody is looking to make a big in this industry, what that person should do.
And you think about certain skill sets or opportunities to learn. My biggest advice is to always have a thirst for knowledge, to constantly learn. I have my own practice that every year I kind of put what is going to be my target. And this was actually passed by from a mentor, and it was AI. So podcasts in AI. How do I immerse myself in AI? AI is probably the number one skill set the board seats are looking for. Mm-hmm. So if you can really grow and understand a space at a different level and then bring that into the know-how and knowledge that you have, I think it just really, again, it goes back to building out your profile, which again is probably why I was very interested to be a part of an organization, but really kind of move in different roles across the enterprise to understand everything from shop floor to sitting at the board or going into a complete different industry, because you start to see the connections and the parallels. Something as simple as glass that's spun to create insulation, but it's still, you've got power efficiencies, you've got digitization, you have a desire to understand and sense what's happening with moisture. So it all connects.
Yes.
It's amazing.
It's the same topic, same topic of energy efficiency, reliability, availability, so same topics.
Exactly.
No, you made a good point. Like, so if somebody's looking to make a big, that hunger for learning should be there. And AI, it's a good topic, like whatever form you are learning, there are so many tools that can be used in this energy industry. And as you know, like lots of investments are happening in that space only.
Yes. And I think maybe going back to bias as well, as I think another important area is investing in yourself and to do a lot of self-reflection. And I think having mentors, doing, I just finished some executive coaching and being a part of networks. And again, the constant learn of, how do I become a better leader? How do I understand the soft stuff, the biases, the culture? How do I apply that, just like the hard stuff, the finances, the strategic intent of the next 10 years? And I think when you start to pair those two, it's also really important, not only for self-fulfillment and purpose, but then also the ability to pass that on to the next generation.
That makes sense, and that's the bias you talked about. Sometimes we have a self bias. We underestimate ourselves in that learning journey. We always think, oh yeah, I have enough time, but you don't realize these years they just passed by. So if you're thinking, I will say, let's start today. Don't stop thinking and do something. Yeah, no,
Well said.
yeah, no, that's great, Heather. Just switching a topic here, coming back to your journey. As I said, like you have worked very closely with this industry, and you have worked across different functions and different roles. But if you're given a chance to reflect back, what changes you might make to your journey?
Such a good question. Sometimes you think of, okay, maybe I would have done, I would have tweaked this or I would have tweaked that. And actually asking the leaders before me, now I wonder if maybe it all happened just as it should. Because number one, I remember starting my journey and raising two daughters. And I remember at the early stage just thinking wow, am I doing any of it right? Your hair's a mess. You've left a child at school. You've forgotten about a proposal and you're just what am I doing? But in actuality, if you look back, you're actually doing a really good job, because you're showing it, a very young child, you're giving yourself some self-purpose and you're growing and learning as a leader. So, maybe, and maybe some things that in the moment felt really hard, or I might have felt like I was hitting a wall, but in actuality, it was a challenge that I probably needed to have so I could take another leap and try something in another way and grow even more, grow even further. A great example, I talk a lot about going into the kingdom in Saudi because it really impacted my life a lot. And we talk about bias. Again, who would think a blonde female is going to be leading a, largest integrated petrochemical complex? You just wouldn't think that. But I remember going in for the first time and I was denied entry because I couldn't read Arabic on my passport. And I remember flying home and I told my husband, I think I might have even cried. And I told my husband, I was like, yeah, I've basically have spent almost 40 hours in an airplane and I'm going to go right back. The determination and just okay, literally went back, had my passport corrected, and I got on the next plane and flew right in. And that was 7 years of an incredible journey. But I could have said, you know what? That really was terrible. I'm never going to go back. I could have missed something that was such a pivotal moment, a profound moment in my career.
No, makes sense, and you learn from all those experiences. I always say you can go two modes. You can go in the victim mode, and then you say everything is happening wrong around me, or other way around, you say, okay, you take as opportunity to learn and move forward, and that's what you just talked about, your experience in Saudi.
You said as well, time goes by too fast, and so those two little girls that I raised. And I would say that, majority of my life at ABB was raising daughters as well. So I remember starting there and then I remember leaving there 18 years later. And I looked at pictures of when they were born and then as young adults leaving. And we all felt that journey. And they they have shared with me how impactful it was for them as well to experience the firsthand of what happens in these industries, to know, what oil and gas is all about, or, how to drive electrical efficiency, or, the conversations that are at a table, but also to be aware and confident to say, I can do anything. I can do anything. And I'm watching it firsthand now, and it's been super fun.
That's one. No, that's great. So that also brings us to a rapid fire round, Heather. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, let's start. One word that describes your leadership style.
Authentic.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, like you need to be authentic to make a progress and to leave your mark. So no, I fully agree. Let's move to next one. What's your go-to ritual before a big presentation or deal?
Go-to ritual. Number one, to always be very prepared. Paul Singh, hopefully you're listening to this. We've had this conversation before, but to be very prepared. I also like to listen to podcasts. So hence why I'm so excited to be a part of this. I like just the process of being prepared, but then to listen. And maybe that's, again, the whole different perspective.
Yes.
And then start blending what it means to me. And then as well, hearing the different perspective of what I might anticipate, what that will be.
That's great. That's great. The next one, the most inspiring leader you have worked with.
There's so many. The list goes on and on. Many from ABB. I've got Frank Duggan has really left a monumental mark on my career. Guido Jouret, who actually is the one who I think has given me a lot of wings to fly. And guidance of how to prepare and strategically and expose myself to new things that will prepare me for phase 3 when I'm ready for phase 3. There's many mentors, Melody Meyer, Stephanie Cox. I can't even name them all. There's so many. This network has phenomenal leaders that have broken through barriers, but have been gracious enough to put a helping hand out to pass on those learnings to the next generation.
Makes sense. That journey continues, so you're passing to the next generation. So that never stops. If you could solve one global challenge with technology, what would it be?
Great question. Boy, that's a great question. And maybe it's a little bit of a reverse, to drive more grounding, if you will, more sense of peace. I find the efficiencies that you can gain with technology are phenomenal. I really appreciate the sustainable tech steps that many companies have taken. But I think just a moment also just to kind of step back and pause, whether that's the Calm app, or other things that just I think it's a balance of both. And I've also really liked the coin of you can't have AI without HI.
Yeah.
So with the technology, you have the human piece as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Your favorite place to recharge after a long week?
Home.
A book or podcast that recently sparked your thinking?
Well, Now You is my new podcast, which I've been listening to. I am just anything McKinsey. I love CEO excellence.
Yes.
I spend a lot of time listening to Carolyn Drewer. I'm going to read their new book, which just came out, CEO of All Seasons. I think that there's tremendous nuggets in all of those. I also truly appreciate Jesse Itzler. It's more of an athlete, entrepreneurial viewpoint, again, talking about biases. I've gone to Running Man, which is kind of like Burning Man, but it's actually exercise and all about health and wellness. And I've learned a lot in the fireside chats and the panels that they have there. It's all around wellness, but there's so many reflections that I've found that lead into our industrial space as well.
Makes sense. Last not the least, what's your hidden talent or fun fact most people don't know?
Hidden talent. Well, I think everybody knows, hidden talent. I love to garden. I love to garden. I love roses. I think I have 350 boxwoods. I know how to trim a bonsai. I took floral design in high school. I don't think I've ever shared that with anyone, but maybe that's a hidden talent.
That's a really hidden talent.
Love bonsais.
Now it's exposed. No.
Which takes a lot of patience, which you wouldn't think.
No, that's great. No, thank you. It was really good fun. No, you did really good, Heather. It was nice.
Thank you.
No, that's great. Last not the least, few things I want to know before we disconnect. So we have talked about a lot about your journey, about how this market is going towards, how this industry is behaving. But you have to underline one key takeaway for our listeners to make big in this industry. What would be that one key takeaway?
For me, and especially if we're going to be talking about biases, I think there's a really important call to action for all leaders. And maybe it's a combination of representation matters as well. And if we are in an environment, I would advocate to challenge peer, a leader, bring forth maybe a little bit of awareness that can help an entire organization. And when I talked a little bit about it's important to treat as a leader the soft stuff just like you do the hard stuff. Culture means everything. How people are feeling included, how you are, working with HR to make sure any type of role, not only maybe is it a stretch, but you're getting a different perspective of individuals, and you can help negate some biases that could possibly be there by just flipping it upside down, maybe asking why haven't we thought about this, why haven't we thought about that. And I love the quote by Einstein, and I wrote it down. Again, a lot of these nuggets come from CEO excellence, but not everything that counts can be counted. And that's, again, it's the soft stuff. That's when it really matters. When you can be bold in that space as a leader, as a contributor, as a part of an organization, it will move mountains. And we've watched where you flip it on the other side and you possibly don't have the best culture or you're not treating the soft stuff like the important stuff. You're not going to get the profitability that you're looking for because it's very connected.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I think you've already hit about one of the bias that exists in the industry. But if you underline one of the key bias, what would be that be?
And I think sometimes the way you can look at it is not intentional.
Mhm.
It's just maybe someone's not aware. That's why I say it's super to really feed forward. So
Understood.
always feedback it's not a negative. Maybe it's an opportunity for someone to learn. And you've heard some of the things that I've been told I'm too
Yes.
glamorous,
Okay.
told you're a female, you can't do this. I've been told you're a woman, you can't do global travel.
Yeah.
So words matter. What that actually did for me is it turned a fire in me.
Yes.
And it was, I've had a leader tell me before, Heather, you're not going to knock the door. You're going to take a sledgehammer and you're going to break it down. But it could take someone who really has the skill sets and the capability and make them turn somewhere different. So I think that's really important for us, especially knowing it's not intentional, but it can happen. So
Yes.
Educate, learn, participate, walk the talk, create the DNA.
Yes.
And because it's infectious and everybody's watching.
Yes, you're right. And I have an open channel for feedback. So I think that's very, very important.
Yeah.
It goes both sides, as a leader or as an employee that works for you.
I would say the most impactful feedback is bringing in very different individuals. Or I learned probably some of the best things from our early career, just asking questions because you've got, again, a different perspective. You're maybe come from a completely different generation, but 100%.
So it makes sense. So thank you so much, Heather. I really enjoyed all the conversation, and I hope our listeners will able to learn and take some nuggets to put it in the practice. So before we sign off today, anything to add here?
I'm honored and humbled, and I'm so grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful for working together with you, and I love that we're still connected. This world is absolutely connected. We say it so often, but when you see someone and you have these short conversations and you're left with something. I'm always left with something when I see you. So I'm so proud of you with this podcast. Well done. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of it.
Thank you so much, Heather. I'm looking forward to staying connected. I hope listeners will enjoy this conversation. I will sign off for this week. Keep listening, Oil and Gas Baking by Show. Have a great day. Thank you.